Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 22 of the Canine Culture Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about keeping your dog safe on the 4th of July. We know the 4th of July is right around the corner, and for many of us, our dogs have a lot of anxiety on the 4th of July with all of the fireworks and a lot of the things going on outside. So now is really the time to take action to make sure that your dog is safe, to make sure they have the least amount of anxiety as possible, and to make sure that if something does happen, you do have a plan in place. So the very first thing to think about here is making sure you have secured your fences. So depending on the type of fence that you have, if you have gaps in your fence, maybe you have some boards that need replaced, this is definitely the time to get that done. Because a lot of the times when these dogs hear fireworks, they hear a lot of loud noise, they will look for any way to get out, or they might just, if it's a fence with gaps, they might just run right out of the gaps. So it's something to take into consideration. As a secondary point to that, if possible, keep your dog indoors on the 4th of July and keep them in a room that will be safe. So you've probably seen those viral videos where the dogs run through a sliding glass door or break through something. So really trying to think about where's a safe place in your house where your dog will be comfortable, but also just genuinely safe, to where if they do have a little bit of anxiety or they have a panic attack, they're not going to injure themselves. The next thing to think about is anxiety medications. So if your dog is already on an anxiety medication, making sure you have plenty of that medicine to give them. If not, make sure you're getting in with your vet to get that refilled. Also thinking about other supplements that might help with anxiety. So maybe some of the supplements that contain CBD or the supplements that contain L-tryptophan. There's a number of things on the market that you might be able to give your dog. And if you are going to be introducing something that is newer or your dog hasn't taken before, you might want to give that a test run prior to the 4th of July. Just see how your dog reacts. Make sure that everything's going to be okay with using it. Maybe start with less than a full dose just to gauge how the dog and that medication will interact with each other. The next thing to think about are your pet ID tags. So making sure that your dog is wearing their ID tag. If you have a harness that has maybe a phone number and information embroidered on it, that's a good choice. And then kind of piggybacking off of that, if your dog is microchipped, making sure that microchip information is updated. Worst case scenario, your dog does gets out a door, gets out the fence. You want to make sure that microchip information has your name and contact information associated with it. The next thing to think about is make sure you have a current photo of your animal in case they do break away. This is not something that we want to think about, and this is kind of something we addressed in another podcast with respect to a lost dog. But just making sure you have that most recent photo that you can quickly share. You can send it to social media, you can send it to your neighbors, just making sure you have that handy. Another idea for the 4th of July is making sure that in the morning your dog has a longer walk, they have some extra playtime, some extra enrichment. So just making sure that they are, a little less anxious by getting them a little more tired, if you will. So exercising them a little bit more that morning. And of course, being mindful of the heat. Here in Florida, it is pretty hot right now. So if you are walking them, try to walk them pretty early in the morning. Otherwise, making sure that they aren't on pavement, but rather they're walking on grass or maybe on sand. Kind of sticking with this anxiety theme because it is such an anxiety-ridden holiday for so many dogs. Think about some other ideas with respect to like anxiety wraps or jackets. So they have those thunder coats. If you have one, maybe use that. If not, you might want to get one to see if it would work for your dog. They have different types of, wraps and coats and vests and different things that your dog can actually wear. Making sure that if your dog is outside, make sure that you keep any sparklers, glow sticks, fireworks, charcoal, the kebab skewers, all of those away from your pets. So again, it really is best practice to try to keep them indoors. But if you are having a party and there's people outside, maybe you just bring them out for a bit. Just being mindful of not only the noise, but all of the other elements that come with the 4th of July. The final suggestion here is once the holiday is over, on July 5th, check around your yard for any firework debris. If you did have a party, are there any remaining food scraps? Is there anything else that someone may have dropped? Any empty cans? Anything that could injure or harm your dog or that your dog might be curious about and get into? So I hope that these tips help you and your dog for the 4th of July. And as always, if you have any feedback, questions, concerns, any topics that you would like covered on the podcast, please send us an email at thecanineculturepodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure you follow us on social media on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.